Hey everybody, I'm sitting here on the floor of the dungeon, the Chords of Orion studio, and I'm working on a pedal board build. I decided to get out my Pedal Train Classic Pro, I believe it is. Yep, Pedal Train Classic Pro. I haven't used this for a while, but it's a nice size and it can hold a bunch of pedals, including several larger form factor pedals, and there are going to be a couple that are some larger pedals on this build. The second thing I've got in the pedal board right now is a power supply. And if you've never built a pedal board before, I highly recommend investing in a good quality pedal board power supply. I really like the Strymon Zuma. And I want to let you know that I purchased the Zuma. It was not given to me by Strymon. So I am saying this in all sincerity. It's a fabulous power supply. It's not the cheapest in the world, but it powers 9 different pedals and can do high current pedals, which is really cool. This pedal train has that fuzzy Velcro material on the board itself. When I got this board, I went ahead and installed it on each of the rails. And what I do for the actual individual pedals, I just simply use the other side of the Velcro, technology. It is technology, isn't it? I use the other side of the Velcro and just stick it on the bottom of the pedals. There are more sturdy locking mechanisms to really keep your pedals on a board if you're a touring or gigging musician. But for me, this works really well and it's very flexible. Another thing I'll mention is cables. For this build, I'm going to need a bunch of small cables. These cables I've had for years and they work for me. They're not the absolute best cables, but they're adequate cables. I'm going to go ahead and show you each pedal as I lay them out. You'll see where I put them on the board. The first up is a tuner. This is a TC Electronic Polytune 3 or Cubed or however you pronounce it. It's the black body. It's very simple. It's very inexpensive. And I'm going to put it in the upper right-hand corner of the pedal board because that's where I'm going to plug the guitar into. Directly into the tuner. That way I can hopefully stay in tune. After that, where I want to go next is a compressor. And this is normally how I run my signal chain. Compressor after the tuner, I'm going to use the Strymon Compadre. I've got a couple of other compressors that will work great too. One example would be the Wampler Ego. Definitely love that compressor. But the Strymon's going to work really well for this application. I'm going to go ahead and put it up on the upper rail next to the tuner. Okay, so I've got my tuner, my compadre, and then next up is an overdrive pedal. And for this, I'm going to use, it probably is my favorite overdrive pedal. It has been for years. It's the Strymon Riverside. I really like this pedal. It's got an ampy kind of tone, and I love it with just a very light crunch. Oh, this thing, great. Now, I'm not going to put it next to the compadre because I want it down lower where I can easily turn it on and off. So in this case, I'm going to position it on the rails below the compadre. All right? After the Riverside Overdrive, the next pedal is going to be my amp modeler. And if you've been hanging out here on the channel, oh, old man creak. Oh, did you hear that? I did. If you've been hanging out here on the channel, you know that I use and love the Strymon Iridium. And this particular unit, again, I purchased this one. This is going to allow me to get that Fender Deluxe reverb tone going into a Marshall 4x12 style cabinet. So I'm going to go ahead and place that on the upper rail next to the compadre. All right, so this is what I like to call my front end. So tuner, compressor, overdrive or distortion, amp modeler. And I like to think about it like an amplifier. Okay, so I'm plugging in, as it were, virtually into the front end of an amplifier. And I've got again, in addition, my compressor and distortion, which normally you would put that in front of the amplifier, right? So it's very similar to that traditional amp signal chain. After the front end of the pedal board, what I normally do is concern myself with pitch and volume. In this case, I'm going to use the TC Electronic Brainwaves. I actually like the Electro-Harmonix Pitchfork a little bit better, but the Brainwaves has a true bypass, whereas the Pitchfork is buffered. So I think that's going to allow me to keep my tone a little bit better through the signal chain. So I'm going to put it down next to the Riverside. So you can kind of see how the signal chain is getting just a little complicated. I'm going to be going tuner, compadre, down to the Riverside, up to the Iridium, down to the Brainwaves. Hey, wait a minute. Yeah, that's actually what I'm going to do. Maybe. I might put the Brainwaves in front of the Iridium. Let me think about that. After pitch comes volume. And in this case, it's going to be a volume pedal, as I have on every pedal board that I ever build. Normally, I would be using a Morley Little Alligator, which is still really, that's my favorite volume pedal. But I do have a smaller form factor volume pedal. It's a Lele volume pedal, and it sounds really good, and it's easy to operate, and it fits perfectly right there. Look at that. Love it. Okay, that's my right, perhaps your left, depending on how this video turns out, but to my right then, I've got half of my pedal board laid out. All right, let's get the other side of that pedal board built out. The first delay pedal, delays coming up after volume pedal, is going to be the long delay for Frippertronics, and you probably guessed it if you know me. It's the Strymon El Capistan. This thing can do up to a 20-second delay in sound on sound or SOS mode. And I'm going to go ahead and put that up on the upper rail. And the reason why I'm going to put it up there is because once I tap in the loop, that's going to be the sound on sound loop, I'm not really going to need to work with the foot switches very much. So that's fine up there. Next, after the El Capistan, this is where I want to bring in my granular delay capability. And I'm going to be using the Hologram Microcosm. You may have seen this a couple of times on this channel. I think 3 or 4 times probably. And I'm going to be using the Mosaic micro loop effects. There's a whole section of micro looping options, and one of them is called Mosaic. So I'm going to use that. I love the sound of it. It's really great. So let me get that pedal installed. Let's see, where do I want that? I'm going to put it up here. Yeah, I like that. All right, great. I have one last delay pedal, and this is the more standard stereo delay. And again, it is a Strymon pedal. Again, I purchased it. It wasn't given to me. I just really like it. It's the old version 1 of the Strymon Dig. It's such a great sounding stereo delay with modulation. That's going to go up next to the El Capistan. And finally, at the end of all things, or at least the signal chain, is going to be the reverb pedal. And I mentioned I wanted this to be a small, simple reverb pedal. And so what I selected is a pedal I've owned for probably 8 years. It is the Neunaber Immerse, and it's the original version of the Immerse. I do like the Mark II, but I like the original better. And I will be using the Hall reverb algorithm on this pedal. It is just, it is a fantastic sounding reverb algorithm. And I'm going to go ahead and put that pedal in the upper left-hand corner because the stereo outputs of this pedal are going to go directly into my computer audio interface, which is behind you virtually on my studio desk. So this is the pedal board I'm not going to bore you with hooking up all the cables and such, but let me go ahead and do that, and then we will audition it and see what some of the sounds are that can be had with this setup. All right, I'm back. I'm sitting on a chair. I've got a guitar. The pedal board is powered and connected. And I did neglect to tell you about one other pedal, so I'd like to tell you about it now. That is the TC Electronic Infinite Sustainer. I've placed it between the volume pedal and the Strymon El Capistan, and I'm going to use that to capture an ambient drone as we go along. All right, so here is my guitar tone with no pedals engaged. It's as if I had plugged directly into the computer. As you can tell, this is down-tuned. It's a D'Angelico baritone. Let's start adding in some pedals. The first one I want to add is the Strymon Iridium to get the Fender Deluxe amp model going. Yes. Next up is the Strymon Compadre. I've got some fairly mild compression dialed up. It's not doing a whole lot, but it's just squishing that dynamic range and providing just a little bit more sustain. Next up is the Strymon Riverside Overdrive, just a little bit of light crunch. I'm actually going to bring down the mids and the treble just a bit. Yeah, that's good. I love that. Just a little bit of light crunch. I actually can also get a more high gain tone out of this if I wish. As you can see, I'm using the volume pedal for volume swells. All right, there's a pink pedal there. That's the TC Electronic Brainwaves Pitch Shifter. Let's go ahead and get that going for a moment so you can hear it. There are two voices on the Brainwaves. I've got voice 1 set up to 1 octave below the regular tone of the guitar, and voice 2 is a perfect fifth above. Here's what that sounds like. The thing about the Brainwaves is it doesn't do pitch-shifted chords very well. They get kind of garbagey. That's not too bad, but check this out. The Electro-Harmonix Pitchfork actually does a better job, but again, this is going to work fine for what I want it for today. I'm only going to be playing single notes. All right. That's the right-hand side of the board. Let's get into the left-hand side. The first thing I want to get into is the TC Electronic Infinite Sustainer because I want a low drone with the pitch shifter. So I'm just going to play a low E, and I'm going to capture a slice of it with the Infinite Sustainer. Here we go. Yes. Now, that is just riding underneath everything else. Yeah, it's just there, filling in the cracks, so to speak. We need another pedal to fill in some cracks. It's the Neunaber Immerse. Check out the reverb I've got dialed up. Oh, yes. It adds a really nice stereo field. I've got it dialed again low because I'm going to have 3 delays going here. I just want it again to kind of fill things out with some really beautiful ambient reverb. All right, ready for some delays? I am too. Let's start out with the Strymon Dig. And I've just got a nice stereo delay set up. Yeah, I like that a lot. That's kind of the bed, but we need to spice it up just a little bit. This is where the Hologram Microcosm comes in. Remember I said I've got it set to the Mosaic, one of the Mosaic micro loop algorithms. Here's what that sounds like. I've turned off the Strymon Dig so you can just hear the microcosm. Now let's just hang on here. It takes a little bit to get going. Oh, did you hear that? Yeah, let me turn that up a little bit in the mix. Here we go. Yes. With the way it operates on the grains, it can be very unpredictable in some ways. You can kind of predict it, but in some ways, not so much. So I'm going to turn it back down just a little bit. And it's going to play back those beautiful semi-random grains as I play. I'm going to add the Strymon Dig back in. I'm not really playing that many notes, am I? But there's a lot of interesting texture going on underneath. All right, we've got one silvery gray pedal to go, the Strymon El Capistan. And I'm going to use that to capture loops, Frippertronics style loops. The El Capistan right now is set to SOS, sound on sound mode, and I'm going to go ahead and set up the loop. I'm going to let it go for about, 6, 7, maybe 8 seconds. All right, there we go. All right, so I've punched in my loop. I'm going to grab my EBow. I'm going to turn the tone control down on the guitar. I'm going to go ahead and activate the Strymon El Capistan, and I'm going to start playing some Frippertronics style loops. After a moment or so, you'll see me kick in the brain waves so we can get some octave and perfect fifth action going on. Let's see how this goes. your distortion now. Oh yeah, this pedalboard's going to work out really well for the ambient guitar meditations that I'm working on recording right now. Also, are you interested in learning more about Frippertronics techniques? If you are, I've got a free workshop right here just for you. Click on that video. I'll see you over there.